Hello comic fans, I'm Kinglink and I'm here to review Injustice 2. It's great to finally talk about this game. I was delayed with the March Humble Monthly Bundle, but I'm here to finally talk about something I'm really passionate about, comics. Now this might be a long video, but it's because I really love comics, fighting games, and honestly the Injustice series. I'm definitely a Marvel fanboy, and I grew up with them. I'm a big fan of Deadpool, probably my favorite superhero, and I use the term hero there loosely, as well as Spider-Man and X-Men, but I'm also a huge DC fan. I would get weekly drops of comics from Costco, 30 Marvel, 30 DC comics, and just devour them all. Death of Superman and Nightfall are up there with Maximum Carnage for me. At least those were the three comic events I really remember as I grew up. So, enough about me. How's Injustice 2? Well, check the video. This game looks great. The character models are nicely detailed, the game is gorgeous, the environments are active, and more. I'm going to be playing the Multiverse here, so you'll see me fight a bunch of different characters, but you can just watch me fight through it. I'm using Harley Quinn, so check it out. Now, I was really a fan of Mortal Kombat X, but Injustice 2 just takes it to the next level graphically, and it's impressive. Though, the one issue I have, and I'm sure I'm going to be showing it off a few times in the video, is these super moves. In this game, they're long, like really long, and I would have loved for a fast ability or a skip, but instead you have to sit through the long montage. It's a really cool system the first time, but I wish it was faster after a while. With that said, the game looks good, but the story mode is even slicker. You have great visuals that made me think I was watching a movie multiple times. Though I do have some issues here, the game continues in the universe of the totalitarian Superman from the first Injustice game. The game mentions, but then hand waves away the original game's idea of the two universes. We're now completely in the Injustice universe. The problem is, I don't know if I see a reason for it. We have a rather good Brainiac story, but why can't that be told in a more conventional universe? Well, the reason is we need to do a soap opera drama on whose side and more. And, it works, but well, okay, it's not really that bad. It's just a little strange to completely change the tone of the story. I like the multiverse in the original story. I like that whole who's who. Now, if you haven't played the first game, you probably should at least read the synopsis, because this is a strange world where Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy are actually teaming up with Batman, and everyone's acting like that's the most normal thing in the world. There are some reasons, and they make sense, but it's just odd for a first-timer. The character selection for Injustice 2 feels a bit off. There's a lot of obvious choices, Superman, Batman, Harley Quinn, but then there's also like the Joker, even though he probably shouldn't be here. If you don't know the original Injustice story, Superman straight up murders him at the beginning of the first Injustice. That's not a spoiler, that's the first 3 minutes of the original game. But Injustice 2 lacks some of my favorite characters from the original Injustice game. Doomsday, Deathstroke, Lex, Martian Manhunter, and Zod. Yeah, those last two were DLC, but still they could be back. Instead, though, the game fills out the cast with more of the Arrowverse selection, as I call it. The DC TV characters. You have people like Flash, Deadshot, Captain Cold, Firestorm, and the new DCEU. Now, this is clearly more of DC's desire than NetherRealms, but there are odd choices here, and a few character designs just feel off. Joker looks freaking odd, even odder than the Jared Leto version. Flash is beefier than he should be by a significant amount. There's also characters like Dr. Fate and Blue Beetle that I honestly don't know and seem out of left field. An older version of Green Arrow that doesn't really fit in with everyone else, and Cheetah instead of Ares because, well, Cheetah is coming out in the next Wonder Woman movie, but that's not even out until next year. Now, I understand the limitations on NetherRealms, but the fact is, stuff like a blonde Aquaman doesn't feel right anymore. The fact is, the Justice League movie doesn't mesh well with these characters, and even worse, the DCEU possibly falling apart means we'll be seeing all new versions of these characters on the movie screen before long. Enough character discussion though, what is done with them in the game? Well, the presentation of the game is excellent. There's tons of small things that NetherRealm does to bring any of their characters to life. Characters will attack each other after you've chosen them and you're just looking at stages, and it's just small things like that which are nice. There's great little intros as characters meet and taunt back and forth, and there's actually quite a few of them. Some are just nasty. I love when Robin says, a good father would make time, and Batman snaps back, a good son would deserve it. Now, there's two types of people, I'm sure. There's those that are saying it's a sick burn, and those who are confused. Yeah, okay, that's the problem I have with the alternate universe. Here, Robin is actually Damian Wayne, the evil version, who is Talia and Bruce's son, who, yeah, he does exist in the comics sometimes. I mean, that's the problem when talking about comics. But again, there's so many different versions. Though, understanding the Injustice 2 world and the Injustice 2 version of the comics is important because the characters have so much life in them, you'll enjoy these little touches between them so much more. Though, sometimes it's as simple as Supergirl just telling someone, you fight like a noob. Like, with Supergirl saying that, I crack up every time. Only problem I really have with the presentation is the winner's pose at the end of every match is the same. I showed a few times here, and it's the same screen. I would have loved to see multiple win animations, even just 2 or 3 could change it up a bit. After 10 to 20 matches with the same character winning, you're going to get bored of it very quickly. But this is a fighting game, and it's always going to come down to the gameplay and the fighting system. Honestly, if you played Mortal Kombat X or XL, either version, you know you have a great fighting engine here. For anyone else, well, you have light, medium, strong attacks, as well as character actions, and more. There's a lot of generic moves, such as like the down medium is an uppercut, the back heavy attack is a slow but powerful attack. That all works. But each character is actually very different, and it's one thing that really makes Injustice 2 stand out. They all have unique character attacks, special attacks, and even the timing and speed of each common move will change quite a bit. In addition, combos outside of the light, medium pattern are all different for all the characters, and using special moves in the middle of the combos will change the game. Though, don't expect much from my video. I admit I'm not that good at Injustice 2, but the system is. I love the different characters and their different feels. Playing as Superman and Supergirl probably could feel the same, but they don't here at all. They are very unique characters. Every character actually feels unique. Green Arrow has awesome projectiles with trick arrows too, whereas Bane has Venom to power up his wrestling moves. Scarecrow uses a little more fear. Joker uses more tricks. Yeah, like I said, every character is unique. I go into this far more in the written review in the description, but the only real negative for Injustice 2's fighting is what I said before. Super moves are annoyingly long. They break up the flow of the game, and that's just a small problem. But it's a great fighting engine, and really, it's one of the top choices out there in my opinion. It's a shame we can't just stop with that, but there's other problems we have to talk about. Now, one big piece is frame rate. Injustice 2 is built for 60 FPS, and some fighting games find ways around that. Injustice 2, you need to hit that 60 FPS. If you don't and VSync is turned on, it's really unplayable. I couldn't hit 60 FPS in 1080p, so I actually switched to 1600 by 900, and that worked, and even went down to 1280 by 720 to get optimal graphics. But that mark is critical. If you don't hit 60 FPS, you're going to have problems. Even with frame skip and turning off VSync, yeah, it's just not enough. Though, I will say that Injustice 2 has a very nice auto setting mode that, you know, it figures out the optimal settings without much work. Why don't more games have that? AI in Injustice 2 is what you'd expect from NetherRealms. The end of the story mode has an unfair boss fight, and I would complain, but, you know, it's what I've come to expect from NetherRealms by this point. Cheap moves, long combos. But in addition to the Injustice 2 story mode, there's now the Multiverse. This is their version of the living tower system that was so good in Mortal Kombat X. Unfortunately, it's not living enough in my opinion. You get almost generic universes to fight through that swap out with others that feel almost the same. You chase gear, fight randomized enemies, but the enemies are just ladders without really a reason for you to fight half of them. They're just more fights. You know, I think of the Spirit Battle system in Smash Bros. Ultimate that have a great theme, and I kind of wonder why Injustice 2 couldn't do something similar. You have a massive comic universe with hundreds of characters. Even these characters have mixed and matched multiple times. But instead here, we get very similar fights that just feel generic. Besides the multiverse being generic though, the AI is here, and it gets annoying. When you get to the boss enemies in it, it seems like the AI starts to read your inputs instead of playing the game, and it just gets wins that way. Now, the good news is that you can use the AI that makes most of this pointless. I tell you more, but I made a quick 5-minute videos to show you how broken that system is. I'm going to link it at the end. You probably should watch it if you're interested. Of course, there is one more big issue: stat-based gameplay. So, using the AI is a great way to beat the multiverse, but it's also a great way to get levels. The problem is that level system is not a very fun part of Injustice 2. It's grind as gameplay in its purest form, and if it was only that, the multiverse might be fine. But online offers it, and it uses the tournament system without the levels and stats as a secondary option mode. The fact is, I think it means that NetherRealms wants you to use it. Now, level grinding and equipment that give you stats are kind of annoying. So why do they do this? Well, I have a video that of course talks about that I'll also link. It's monetization again, and it's a shame because Injustice 2 is fantastic. It's just not very good when it comes down to being all about the cash. It's a badly designed system that I feel only exists in the hope to getting you to pay for microtransactions. So rather than have you grind for 4 to 8 hours to get a level 30 character, you could just pay $10 or maybe 2 purchases of $5, however you want to do it. Now, I have to call this out because it's really distasteful. To get every character to 30 will take at best maybe 4 hours a character. That's 152 hours of level grinding because there's 38 characters. Check my math. And that number is probably low. But it doesn't even count the time farming loot, and that's really too much. And the reason why I bring it up is levels do matter. Fighting a level 30 enemy as a level 10 will put you at a huge disadvantage. Fighting a level 10 enemy at level 30 will make it a cakewalk to the point where you're wondering why you didn't fight. But that's not why I play fighting games. I want a relatively even battleground. There should be difficulty options, there should sometimes be a harder fight, but that doesn't mean that you should have levels making that decision for you. Now, there's already DLC in fighting games, and I'll say this: Injustice 2 does have a great lineup of DLC characters. That's not a problem to me, and I'll accept those. Though, I'd recommend the Legendary Edition to anyone interested in Injustice 2 because it gives you the full roster, and the extra characters are worth it. Personal favorite is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You get 4 fighters for the price of 1. Let me say one more thing about the gear though. I'm not against the inventory system. I want to point out that Tekken 7 has a fantastic inventory system because it doesn't produce stats, and I'd love to have a chance to chase the equipment here to customize all my characters. It's actually the reason why I was interested in Injustice 2 when I saw my buddy playing it. But the stat-based system means customization isn't as important as the stats on the gear, and overall it's not better for the player to play this game. Injustice 2 is a great fighting game, but it's surrounded by an unfortunate layer of microtransactions that plague video games right now, and it's a perfect example of how microtransactions are hurting games. But being honest about it, I still like to boot up Injustice 2 and just have 2 random characters duke it out. I'm having a good time playing the multiverse as you see on screen. It's just, I have to judge the game for what it is. I'll pretend that they just tried something new here and it didn't work. And I've heard they're backing off of it for Mortal Kombat 11. Kudos to NetherRealms for making the right choice there. But it's still here in Injustice 2 and not very fun. If I see the same system again in Injustice 3, I'm going to have to ding the score more because this is the first attempt. This could have easily been a 4.5 or a 5. Yes, I really like Injustice 2 and the fighting game underneath it, but not like this. Not surrounded by this system, and not with the multiverse as the main single player content that is a little bit lacking. It sucks, but I have to judge the whole product, not just the pieces I like. Ultimately, I give Injustice 2 a 3.5 out of 5. That's a shame in my opinion. It could have been so much more, and it's still really fun. But the levels in the gear do drag the game backwards, even as the game elevates itself to new levels in the fighters. That's Injustice 2, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I'm still a fan of it, even with all that. Coming up next, we're going to look at Yakuza Kiwami. That means extreme. I guess the extreme 90s have now hit Japan. Is it a worthy follow-up to my Game of the Year for 2018? Why do I have to ask such leading questions? I'll cover it all next time though. If you've enjoyed this video, or you just want to see what I say about Yakuza Kiwami, consider subscribing. You have no idea how much I appreciate it, and now we're working our way up to 300 subscribers. Ring that bell to get notifications. It's like your very own superpower. You control what you hear about rather than other people. It's so exciting, and Bruce Wayne approved. Until next time, I'm Kinglink, and thank you for watching.